The body lies still. The breath, once rising and falling like the rhythm of waves, has ebbed to silence. The warmth departs the limbs, the pulse fades into nothing, and a great hush overtakes the senses. Yet within that silence, something stirs, not of the body, but of the mind, of the awareness that lingers just beyond form. Death, as the world sees it, has come. But in the teachings of the ancients, in the whispered transmissions passed through mountain monasteries and candlelit chambers, death is not an end but a doorway, a loosening of the bindings between consciousness and flesh. It is here, at this fragile intersection, that the journey begins, according to the sacred instructions of the bardo Thodol. The first moment after death is not darkness, but light, radiant, immeasurable light, pure as the first dawn before the world was born. This is the Chikai Bardo, the bardo of the moment of death. In this space, the mind is liberated from the confines of the physical world and is confronted with the ultimate truth, the clear light of the void, the very ground of being. It is brilliant, formless, boundless. It holds neither color nor shape, yet it outshines the sun. This light is not external, it is the true nature of the mind itself, now revealed without obstruction. It is what one has always been but never recognized. To the prepared, to those who trained in life to meet death with clarity and detachment, this moment offers complete liberation. If the dying one can merge with the clear light, realizing it as none other than their own awareness, then the cycle of rebirth is broken. Enlightenment arises spontaneously, and there is no further wandering, but for most, the light is too vast, too unfamiliar. It inspires awe, but also fear. It is mistaken for something foreign. The habitual mind, long attached to form and sensation, recoils from the brilliance and retreats. Confusion arises. The ego, though disembodied, struggles to reassert its grasp. In that retreat, the light begins to fade, and with it the clearest opportunity for liberation slips away. Still, the journey has only begun. As the body lies inert and rituals commence around it, incense curling into the air, mantras spoken in hushed voices, the consciousness continues its passage. It is no longer tethered to a name or a body, yet it perceives. Thoughts surge like tides. Memories, attachments, fears, they echo still, shaping the path ahead. The disembodied mind clings to familiarity, yet finds none. It may watch as mourners weep or chant, unaware that it hovers nearby. But the link is broken. No one sees. No one hears. Those who understood the teachings while alive may remember, even dimly, the words recited now in their name. O nobly born, the text intones, listen without distraction. These are not words for the living. They are instructions for the dead, a guide through the bewildering terrain to come. The soul is not alone, for the wisdom of centuries follows it. The teachings do not abandon those who die, they travel with them, offering signposts in the dark. This phase is brief, perhaps mere moments, perhaps longer. Time no longer flows in measured hours. The sense of self is disoriented, unmoored. What is left is awareness in its raw, unfiltered state, drifting between worlds, drawn by habit, pushed by karma. Soon, the visions will begin. But for now, there is only this light, fading now into something else, a stirring in the emptiness, a ripple of imagery preparing to rise. The threshold has been crossed. And the gates of the next bardo open slowly, like the turning of the cosmos, the light has dimmed. Not extinguished, but shifted, transformed into something more complex, more fragmented, more filled with suggestion. Awareness floats, rootless and alert, and in that stillness, shapes begin to stir from the void. They do not come from outside. There are no others here. There is no heaven, no hell, no celestial court handing down judgments. There is only mind, naked, luminous, immeasurably creative, and from its own depth, it begins to paint the space before it with the hues of its innermost nature. This is the candlelit bardo, the bardo of the luminous reality. Here, the undistracted consciousness may still attain liberation. But the way is more difficult, more disguised. The initial purity of the clear light has passed, and now the mind perceives multiplicity. Images arise in cascading waves, subtle at first, then overwhelming, visions of deities, both serene and terrifying, impossible in their beauty or horror, yet unmistakably present. They are not illusions in the crude sense. They are truth made symbolic, mind turned inside out, archetype clothed in radiance and fire. From the silence emerges the first of the peaceful deities. They shine with tranquil brilliance, seated in meditative posture, surrounded by lotus petals and gentle auras. They appear one by one, arrayed in sacred order. Their bodies glow with sapphire, emerald, ruby, gold, colors that have no earthly counterpart. Their eyes do not gaze, but see everything. They do not speak, yet their presence fills all space with knowing. These are not gods to be worshipped, nor hallucinations to be dismissed. They are the mind's own enlightened nature, appearing as it always has been, luminous, compassionate, empty of self, yet fully alive. For those who have meditated in life, who have tasted even a glimpse of non-dual awareness, these visions are familiar. Not in shape or name, but in essence, a knowing without fear. And if the soul recognizes them as its own reflection, if it does not cling or recoil, then liberation is still possible. One merges with the peaceful deities, dissolves into their formless essence, and is freed, but the untrained mind recoils even from light. The visions become too bright, too vast, and with each rejection, the peaceful forms begin to fade. In their place, the wrathful deities arise. They do not come to punish. They are not enemies. Yet their forms are fearsome, roaring beasts with many arms, flaming hair, weapons in hand, fangs bared. They stride across the sky of the bardo like storms. Blood flows, thunder cracks, the boundaries between horror and awe collapse. Yet all of it is mind. All of it is a teaching. The wrathful deities are no different in essence from the peaceful ones. They appear in this terrifying guise not to torment, but to cut through delusion, to destroy ego, to shake the soul into wakefulness. If the soul remembers the teachings, if it has practiced seeing through illusion, it may recognize these fierce beings not as monsters, but as mirrors, raw expressions of the mind's power, stripped of comfort. But for most, fear surges. The soul turns away. It flees not from beings, but from its own face. In that turning, the opportunity fades further. The visions grow more chaotic. The ground of experience becomes unstable. Form arises and dissolves, voice follows voice, shape follows shape. The mind, unmoored from the body, spins in its own projections. Karma stirs from the depths. Past actions, forgotten in waking life, now echo in every image, every sound. The peaceful deities recede. The wrathful ones become confused apparitions. The light dims, becomes flickering, fractured, unreal. The soul no longer knows what to trust. It may grasp for prayer, for comfort, for some anchor, but none comes. The teachings cry out, do not fear. Recognize this as your own mind. But the voice is distant, faint, drowned beneath the storm of appearances. Those who guided the soul in life, teachers, loved ones, ancestors, seem impossibly far. The dying consciousness, still luminous, still capable of awakening, is lost in the dance of its own creation. Yet even now, the doors are not closed. Even now, if recognition arises, even for a breathless moment, if the mind sees all this as theater, as play, as the echo of its own depths, the walls fall away. Light floods in. Liberation is possible at any point in the bardo. But few remember. Few awaken. Most are swept onward, the visions begin to collapse. The deities, peaceful and wrathful, vanish like mist at sunrise. The sky grows dimmer, the space narrower, the experience more confused. A strange gravity begins to pull. Something is changing. A sense of direction, of seeking, begins to form, though there is nowhere yet to go. The soul has passed through the realm of light and form, failed to recognize its own nature, and now it begins to fall, not downward, but inward, toward a new becoming. The next bardo begins. And with it, a search for rebirth. The silence left by the vanishing deities is deeper than before. Not the luminous stillness of the clear light, but something heavier, denser, more obscured. The soul, now stripped of form and dazzled by illusion, drifts through an invisible corridor, a space between spaces, where time has thinned and identity flickers like a flame in wind. There is no body, no voice, no name, only awareness, carried on unseen currents, pushed and pulled by the weight of its own actions, choices, desires. This is the Sidpa bardo. The bardo of becoming, and its pull is relentless. The experiences here are more dreamlike, less visionary, more psychological. The great archetypes have fallen away. What remains is the echo of craving. Desire stirs like a whisper. Fear tightens like a thread. The soul has not awakened, and so it begins to seek, though it knows not what. There is a restlessness, a motion inward and outward at once, a subtle panic rising beneath the surface. The mind begins to form intentions, distorted and faint, but charged with karmic memory. These are not conscious thoughts. They are momentum, habit, imprint. What has been done cannot be undone. The soul moves forward because it must. It begins to see things again, not the radiant deities of the Coniad bardo, but flickers of worlds. Scenes emerge like reflections in dark water, forests and cities, oceans and wombs, flickering with promise or threat. None are stable. All are possible. They are glimpses of the 6 realms, the 6 directions of rebirth described in the teachings, the realms of gods, of demigods, of humans, of animals, of hungry ghosts, of hell beings. The soul does not choose them with logic or preference. It is drawn as iron is drawn to magnet, as water seeks the lowest place. Karma moves beneath the surface, unseen but sovereign. The realm of the gods glimmers like sunlight on water, serene and filled with joy. But the soul's merit may not match its longing. The demigods shine too, yet pride and envy poison their heights. The animal realm is dark and slow, driven by instinct, the human realm subtle and strange, balanced between pleasure and suffering. The hungry ghosts appear with distended bellies and mouths like pinholes, forever yearning. The hells burn, and freeze, and scream. And the soul, though bodiless, feels every possibility as if it were already real. Visions of mating arise. Bodies in union flash before the consciousness, not as erotic fantasy, but as karmic signs. Each pair of potential parents, each moment of intimacy glimpsed from beyond, is a gate, a point of entry. The soul is drawn toward these scenes, pulled not by lust alone, but by deeper forces, unresolved attachments, aversions, ignorance. Some visions glow with warmth, others tremble with fear. One will match the frequency of the soul's current state, and to that one, it will gravitate. Often, the soul sees the male figure as a threat and the female as a refuge, or vice versa, depending on the nature of desire. In the confusion of craving, it reaches, not knowing what it does. If the soul remembers the teachings, even now, it can resist. It can see the scenes for what they are, illusions, reflections, hooks in the stream. It can pull back. Some practitioners, with great clarity, can delay rebirth, choose their parents. Even escape the cycle altogether by recognizing the empty nature of the appearances. But most do not. Most are drawn, as water finds a path down the mountain, into the narrow passage of becoming, and so it begins, not suddenly, but with a gathering density, a coalescing of subtle elements. The consciousness starts to condense, to narrow, to take shape again. Sensations arise, not yet physical, but proto-physical. Touch, warmth, sound. A forming heartbeat. A spark of breath. The soul enters the womb, unseen and unknown, and forgets. The teachings say the passage from death to rebirth can last up to 49 days. But it is not a simple duration. Time in the bardos is not time as the living know it. It is dream time, elastic, dependent on clarity or confusion. For some, the passage is swift, the pull of karma immediate and irresistible. For others, it stretches, echoing with regret, longing, or clinging. But eventually, for nearly all, the cycle closes, a new body is formed. A new name awaits. Memory fades like mist. The teachings, once heard and spoken, are lost to the silence of the cradle. But they are not gone. They lie dormant, hidden in the folds of the new mind, waiting to be remembered. For even in rebirth, the possibility of liberation remains. The path is long, but not hopeless. The bardo teachings are not only for the dead, they are a mirror for the living, a reminder that every moment is transition. Every thought a gate, and death not an end but a turning. The soul sleeps now, held in flesh, swaddled in forgetting. But somewhere, deep within, the clear light still shines, the passage has narrowed. From infinite light and vision, from the vast arenas of mind beyond form, the soul now resides within skin. A body, small, soft, blind, breathes for the first time. A cry breaks the silence of some earthly night. The cycle, ancient and unbroken, has brought the awareness back into form. It does not remember the light. It does not recall the blazing presence of deities, the storm of karmic wind, or the taste of formless liberation. But the imprint remains. It settles into the folds of the brain, into the shadows between heartbeats. What was seen is not lost, only veiled. The child grows. It learns language, gesture, sorrow. It discovers hunger and warmth, the joy of a mother's face, the loneliness of sleep. As the days pass, the mind begins to forget its luminous origin. The ego, gently at first and then with iron weight, weaves its spell. The world narrows into names, objects, tasks. Yet at times, in dreams, in silences, in moments of awe or terror, something stirs. A familiarity. A sudden recognition without source. These are echoes from the bardos, the gentle shock of a truth once known. All that unfolds now is colored by karma. Not as punishment, nor reward, but as the natural unfolding of what was planted before. Each act, each intention from lives past, continues to bear fruit. One may be born into comfort or pain, into clarity or confusion, not because of a God's decree, but because the river of action flows on. The teachings say that even a single angry word can leave a trace that shapes the next life, while a moment of compassion can light a torch in the dark. Nothing is lost. Nothing is without effect. And so this new life, like all others, is both a chance and a consequence, yet the cycle is not cruel. It is precise, indifferent perhaps, but not without possibility. For even within this new form, whether one is born as a king, a beggar, a merchant, or a child with no name, the potential for liberation remains intact. It was never erased, only forgotten. The teachings whisper that even those who fell into the lowest realms may one day rise again, that no being is condemned forever. Time, vast as space, stretches onward. Awareness cannot be destroyed. Only obscured. Meanwhile, the living, those who remain behind in the world of form, do not always understand what has occurred. They bury their dead, speak prayers, hang the white scarves, light butter lamps and incense. Some weep and call it the end. Others remember the teachings and call out not to the departed, but for them. They chant the sacred texts, not as mourning, but as navigation, to guide the soul through the shifting realms beyond. They recite, O nobly born, remember your nature. Do not be afraid. Recognize the light, the sounds, the forms as your own mind. These words, if spoken with clarity and devotion, can reach beyond the veil. For in the teachings of the Bardo Thodol, consciousness is not confined to location. A voice spoken here can vibrate in the space beyond death. The dead, though unseen, may still hear. The sound of a bell, the pulse of a drum, the murmur of a mantra, all are bridges thrown across the abyss, but time moves forward, and eventually the rituals cease. The name of the dead is spoken less often. Their clothes are folded away. Life presses onward with its errands and ambitions. And the reborn soul, now immersed in its new identity, forgets entirely that it has lived before. The karma it carries shapes its instincts, its fears, its longings, a love for music, a terror of water, a strange reverence for fire, all without explanation. And so it lives again, unaware of its own long journey, yet not untouched by it. Still, now and then, a moment comes. A silence in a forest. A look in a stranger's eyes. A sudden grief with no cause. And in that sliver of awareness, something almost returns. Not memory, not yet. But recognition. A tremor. A glint of the light once seen beyond death's threshold. The teachings say that this is how the path begins again, with a pause, a question. A desire to look deeper. Some, moved by these moments, seek the Dharma. They read, they meditate, they remember, and so the circle turns, not as a prison, but as a wheel that carries beings from ignorance to knowledge, from darkness to light. Death is not the end. Nor is birth the beginning. They are both crossings, both illusions. What is real is the mind itself, clear, luminous, boundless, forever present, even as it forgets. The bardo is not only after death. It is here, now, in every moment of transition, every flicker between thought and thought. To live is to walk through bardos unceasingly. And at every turning, the door of liberation waits, open, the days stretch out before the living like an unbroken road. A ribbon of time wrapped in the illusion of permanence. In the waking world, all seems constant, the sun rises and sets, the seasons change with their predictable course, people age and grow, and yet within the body, the soul is already on the move. It passes through time, moving between the flickers of thought, moment to moment, unnoticed. It is only the mind, wrapped in delusion, that insists on continuity, that believes in the permanence of self, of identity, of life, but impermanence is the constant, the only truth that remains. Every breath is a departure from the last. Every thought is a death, and every birth is the beginning of a journey toward death. The teachings speak of this, the fragile, tenuous nature of being, and those who study them may begin to glimpse the truth. For to see impermanence is to see through the veil of illusion, to understand that death is not some distant event to fear, but a process unfolding in every moment. This awareness of impermanence does not come all at once. It is a seed planted gently, growing from the cracks in the mind where the light can enter. It begins in small, quiet realizations, the fleetingness of a sunset, the fragile bloom of a flower, the inevitability of aging, and the pain of loss. As the soul matures in wisdom, it begins to recognize that every form is temporary. That the bodies we inhabit, the relationships we cherish, the dreams we chase, are all, in their essence, impermanent. All are waves on the ocean of time, and every wave must eventually return to the deep. It is this understanding that ripples outward, gradually touching the soul's experience of life. The living, those who remember the teachings or feel their deep stirrings, begin to see death not as an end but as part of the natural flow. It is not something that happens to us, it is something that is already happening within us. Each thought, each movement, each act is, in its essence, a step toward death. And yet, when understood, this realization is not morbid but liberating. For if death is natural, if it is simply the other side of the same coin, then life itself is freed from fear. There is nothing to hold on to, no illusions to protect, only the unfolding of the moment. Those who see impermanence clearly, who meditate on it, reflect on it, breathe with it, are less affected by the winds of delusion. They live fully, not as a means to an end, but as an expression of the present. They no longer cling to the transient, nor do they reject it. Instead, they live with the understanding that everything is in flux, and within that, they find freedom. In every moment, they practice release. In every moment, they let go. When this understanding takes root, the fear of death begins to fade. Death is not something to be feared, but something to be met with grace. For the one who is aware of impermanence, death is not an enemy but a teacher. It is the natural conclusion of a life lived fully, a final reminder of the preciousness of every moment. The teachings tell us that the one who dies with awareness, with acceptance of the ephemeral nature of all things, enters the bardo with a different vision. The mind, already accustomed to seeing through illusion, does not fear the luminous appearances that arise. It recognizes them as reflections of its own mind, like dreams unfolding without attachment. But for those who have not trained themselves, for those who live without awareness of the fleeting nature of things, death is a storm. It comes suddenly, without warning, and when it arrives, it is like the crashing of waves against the shore, fierce and overwhelming. The mind that has clung to form, that has tied its identity to objects and people, is ripped away. It cannot accept the change. It cannot release. And in this confusion, the soul is carried into the bardo with the residue of its fears, its attachments, and its unresolved desires. Even for the dead, the clarity of impermanence is still available. If the soul has, in life, realized the nature of transience, it can see the bardo for what it is, a mirror of its own mind, a projection of its attachments and its fears. It can remember that it is not the form it assumes, not the body it inhabited, but the awareness that is beyond. In the bardo, the soul is freed from the limitations of the physical realm, and yet it is still bound by its karma, by its desires, its longings, its inability to let go. If it remembers that everything is impermanent, it can let go and return to the light, but to let go, to truly release, the soul must be willing to face its fears, to look upon its attachments without flinching. It must understand that all that it has known, all that it has loved, hated, or clung to, is just a passing phenomenon. The peaceful and wrathful deities are not separate from the soul but are born of it. The realms of existence, gods, humans, animals, and ghosts, are reflections of the mind's desires and fears. The ultimate truth is that all of these forms are like clouds passing across the sky, never fixed, never lasting. This recognition, the awareness of impermanence, the understanding of the fleeting nature of all things, is the key to liberation. It is not some distant future goal, but a practice that can be applied in every moment, in every breath. To live with the awareness of impermanence is to live fully, with a heart open to the reality of change. And when death comes, as it must for all, it is not feared. It is met with acceptance, with grace, and with the peace of knowing that the journey is never really over. The cycles of life and death are but a single movement in the eternal dance of the mind, and the mind itself, vast, unchanging, luminous, is always present. The world of the living continues to unfold with its rhythms, the hum of the market, the stir of the wind through trees, the quiet steps of those who walk upon this earth. But beneath the surface of these ordinary moments, there is a deeper current, an invisible stream that connects the realms of the living and the dead, the known and the unknown. This stream flows without interruption, a constant river of life and death, of remembrance and forgetfulness. In the tradition of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, this current is not just a force of nature, but a sacred bond, a bridge between worlds. It is through this bridge that the living may influence the journey of the dead, and the dead, in turn, may continue to affect the living. The connection is not bound by time or space. The teachings say that the moment of death is not an isolated event. It is part of an ongoing flow, a continuation of the life that preceded it, and a preparation for the life that will follow. The living, even after death has claimed their loved ones, have the power to guide the departed through the realms of the bardo, to offer compassion, to speak words of wisdom, to help clear the fog of confusion that envelopes the soul. This influence is not magical in nature, nor is it bound by the physical senses. It is the result of a deep, spiritual connection, the bond that exists between beings who share karma, who have walked together in the world, who have loved, suffered, and experienced together. The living, through their thoughts and prayers, can offer the dead an anchor in the midst of the overwhelming illusions that arise in the bardo. They can send their intentions with love, and those intentions, though unseen, ripple through the realms. In this way, a mother's prayer, a friend's wish, a teacher's guidance can reach beyond death, providing light to the wandering soul, showing it the path forward. the teachings of the bardo emphasize the importance of recognizing that death is not a final severance, but a transition. Though the body ceases to function, the essence of the person, their consciousness, their awareness, their karmic traces, continues its journey. And the living, through rituals, meditations, and prayers, become the lifeline, the bridge for that consciousness, the reminder of its true nature. The dead, though seemingly gone, remain intertwined with the living through the shared currents of time and space, and thus the actions of the living can be of great benefit to the departed. When one dies, the bardo is not just a place of separation, but a space of reflection and transformation. It is said that the soul, in this intermediate state, is confused. It does not fully recognize its own mind, nor does it see clearly the appearances before it. It is as if the soul is walking in a dream, surrounded by visions of its own creation, the deities, the peaceful and wrathful, the terrifying and the beautiful. But it is the living who can remind the dead of the truth, of the fleeting nature of these illusions, of the possibility of liberation. It is through the power of prayer that the living can offer a path to the dead, to help them navigate through the bardo. Rituals are not mere formalities, they are sacred acts of remembrance, of calling forth the soul's true nature. In the Tibetan tradition, the Tibetan Book of the Dead is read aloud to the departed, not just as a guide, but as an offering of light. The words, the sounds, are like the tolling of a bell that resonates across the realms. They remind the soul of its luminosity, of its pure potential, and help it to break free from the grip of illusion. In this way, the living serve as protectors, as guardians, helping the soul as it passes through the illusions of the bardo. But beyond rituals and prayers, there is a deeper aspect of this connection. The living, through their own spiritual practice, their own wisdom and compassion, can offer the dead a deeper understanding. For it is through living a life of awareness, of love, of mindfulness, that the living create an invisible thread that links them to the departed. In moments of silence, in moments of compassion, in moments of deep understanding, the living become a beacon for those who have passed. It is said that the actions of the living, when done with mindfulness and intention, can alter the course of a departed soul's journey, steering it away from confusion, and toward clarity and peace. The bond between the living and the dead is not one-sided. It is not a relationship of dependence or separation, but one of mutual support, of shared spiritual understanding. Those who have passed continue to affect the living, as their memories, their teachings, and their karmic influences ripple through the generations. And in return, the living have the power to guide those who have gone before them, to send love, light, and wisdom into the realms of the departed. In this way, death is not an end, but a continuation of the dance of life, a part of the eternal flow of existence. The living and the dead are never truly separate, but always intertwined in the great web of being, a web that stretches across time and space, holding all in its embrace. To live with this awareness is to understand that death is not something to be feared or avoided, but something to be embraced as part of the great cycle of existence. The departed are not lost. They are only hidden, veiled by the illusions of the bardo. The living are not alone, for the dead continue to walk with them, guiding them with the wisdom of experience. The actions of the living are not insignificant, but can create ripples of compassion and clarity that transcend the veil of death. And in turn, the living may one day pass into the bardo themselves, and find the guidance they need, in turn, from those who walk before them. In this way, the connection between the living and the dead becomes a sacred bond, a circle that carries on through time, through generations, through all realms of existence. It is the bridge that connects all beings, and it is through this bridge that we find the true nature of life and death, not as opposites, but as two sides of the same coin, two expressions of the same truth. And when the living and the dead walk together in this understanding, the cycle of life and death loses its power to cause suffering, and becomes, instead, a dance of liberation, of love, of freedom.